breakfast. We've been doing this for how many years? 15 years? Yeah, something like that. And many of you are seasoned veterans of these events. Some of you have been coming for the entire 15 years or thereabouts. And for you and for those who have never been to one of these before, this is your first time, welcome. My name is Harry Glasgow, and I am an Associate Director of the Soil and Water Conservation District. Now, Associate, come right in. Thank you. Bring your food. What are you going to, that's all you're going to do, no bacon? An Associate Director is the best job of all because you're not responsible for anything, but you can still play. So,
here's a job.
This is, yeah, I'm in trouble now. Customarily, what we do in these things is to introduce everybody one at a time, and we will do that. But I want to make a slight alteration to the way we normally do this. I would like the directors, associate directors, and staff of the Soil and Water have everybody introduced to you. Now I'm going to introduce her to you, or something like that.
Yeah.
This is Meredith Keppel, and Meredith is noted in certain circles in the county as probably the reigning authority on fungus. Fungus, or fungi, if there's more than one. Okay? You wouldn't have learned that if you didn't study Latin. Okay. And Meredith has agreed to give us a talk that she is famous for around the county on fungi and fungus. The thing about this that intrigues me, and if you're my age it will intrigue you too, is she's 15 years old. She can't come to these by herself because she's not old enough to drive. She has to bring a parent, two in this case. That is fascinating. What were you doing when you were 15? I know what I was doing, and it wasn't this. I'll tell you that. But Meredith is an environmentally passionate young lady who volunteers with the Goose Creek Association, which is an organization I don't believe I've ever heard of. Herndon Environmental Network, and we have members from that. And is a growing, loud group, just as they're supposed to be. And the Loudon Habitat for Humanity, Friends of Runnymede Park, and various other organizations. She's a busy kid. She's homeschooled, correct? Yeah, which allows her to do these kinds of things. And I'll be happy to explain that point of view if you were interested sometime. She has a special love for fungi, which has driven her to study micromediation, microfiltration, and her hero, Paul Stamets. And that's a name that you, if you are interested in this, you have to certainly get into very quickly. She will be talking about the method. She was recently accepted. This is an interesting idea. She was recently accepted in an academic intensive semester school at Freeport, Maine. Now, we all know Freeport, Maine, because that's where we buy our stuff from LL Bean. But there's more to Freeport, Maine than LL Bean, although those of us who lived in New England never thought so. This is the intensive semester school at Freeport, Maine called the Coastal Studies for Girls. I didn't think we did that anymore. This is Coastal Studies for everybody, but nevertheless for girls. She received $17,000 in financial aid and is currently raising the last $6,000 to attend this course. I'm sure she will accept your check. Without any further talking on my part, ladies and gentlemen, Meredith Keppel.
I want to start by thanking you all for coming. I know that it's quite a drive for some of you to get out here. I have 3 goals by giving this presentation. My first goal is that you will understand more about fungi than what you just see on the topsoil. My second goal is that you will agree with me that fungi are saving the planet. And my third goal is that you will overcome what we mycologists call fungophobia. That is, that you will be able to love fungi just as much or maybe a little less than I do and be able to go and spread what you've learned to other people. Fungi are not just what we think of when we think of a mushroom. What we see above the soil is what mycologists call fruiting bodies. The majority of the mushroom is what we call mycelium, and you can see this is kind of a good picture of it. This is a mycelial mat kind of here. They look a little bit like a spider web, and any of you who've ever gone out in the forest have probably turned over a dead log and maybe seen some. Mycelium is like the brain, stomach, and dark matter all mixed together. It's what we often refer to as the root network system of a fungi, but comparing it to a plant's root network system would be comparing a lemon to a Lamborghini. It's not quite the same because fungi are often referred to as the leftover category. They're, if they're not a plant, an animal, or a bacteria, then we often throw them in fungi. However, they are much more than that. They're extremely biodiverse, but in this area, we'll often find 3 different things on each of our fungi, but they do come in different kinds. We'll often find a stalk, gills, and a cap. In fact, there are 3 different types of spore dispersal methods, one of which is pore mushrooms. Right here you see an eastern hemlock reishi up top and a bicolored bolete underneath. Most common, you'll see gilled mushrooms. This is my favorite mushroom of all time. It's the oyster mushroom. And afterwards, if any of you are curious, I could talk your ear off about this mushroom.
Is there going to be a test on this? Because should we be taking notes?
And most uncommon of all is the teased mushroom. This is lion's mane. Any of you who are botanists or have a special interest in plants of any kind will tell me that this is a Indian pipe. Indian pipe is not a fungus, but it's often mistaken as a mushroom. However, in an interesting turn of events, this is what we call a mycoheterotroph, or more easily understandable, a mycoparasite. In fact, this plant doesn't produce chlorophyll. It feeds off of fungi's nutrients. And fungi often live symbiotically with plants. So in this plant, it will take the nutrients intended for the mushroom that are coming from other plants. So don't always assume that the mushrooms are to blame. These are a few mushrooms that you might see around here and in other areas. This one up top in the far left corner, you probably have seen before. You'll find it especially in your gardens and compost piles. It's called an inky cap. And kind of interestingly, as the mushroom grows and then dies, the cap will start to roll up at the end and produce this black ink that's very sticky and stains everything. Next to it is probably the biggest culprit of mushroom deaths, mushroom-related deaths. This is destroying angel. It belongs in the Amanita family, and it is extremely toxic. Underneath of those, on the left-hand side still, you'll see the milky cap, which is another common one, but doesn't always look that small. Any of you who ever have cooked will know that this is a chanterelle and this is a morel, and they're both very common in culinary dishes. Next to that, you can see the shaggy mane in the bottom left corner. It is actually being used right now for nerve regenerative medicine. Cutting edge stuff, all fungi related. There are 3 types of mushrooms. There's your saprophytic mushrooms, who are the decomposers. They are the biggest group. And then you have your parasites, which are actually a lot smaller group than a lot of people would think. You might have foot fungus and dry rot, but it's not the only fungi out there. Most unknown of all is mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi live symbiotically with plants. They come in 2 different types of relationships, ectomycorrhizal and endomycorrhizal, or more scientifically correct, vesicular arbuscular mycorrhizae, or as we shorten it to, VAM. Mycorrhizal relationships, mushrooms get plant-secreted sugars, which are often hexose, and the plants get toxins, antibiotics, and enzymes that the mushrooms produce. In fact, these toxins, antibiotic, and enzymes are so similar to the ones that humans produce that fungi are often an incredible resource for human medicine. If you have ever interacted with plants, you probably know that having a locust attack, especially on a corn crop or something, would be terrible. But if you have these corn that live symbiotically with the mushrooms, what can happen is that the mushrooms are connect all of these different plants, so that when your locust attacks the edge of the corn crop, then it can send an enzyme that communicates to the rest of the crop, letting them know this is coming, and the mycelium responds. it sends out a toxin so that when the locusts bite the corn, it will die. And then an antibiotic to heal the other corn that has been infected. So this mycelium not only connects everything, it also heals things and takes care of things. In fact, in 1997, a man named Simard did an experiment. He found a mushroom that was living symbiotically with a paper birch, a western red cedar, and a oak tree, I believe. And what happened was he discovered that by controlling the amount of shading over each mushroom, or over each tree, he found that the results found that the amount of shading each tree received was directly proportional to the amount of sugars it received. That is, that the mushroom was facilitating the amount of sugars each tree received based on their need, because the shade blocked the sunlight it needed to go through photosynthesis and therefore couldn't produce as much sugars. So the mushroom then responded. Seeing this, it took sugars from the other trees to make sure that each tree could survive. Basically, your mushrooms are your foundation of every single ecosystem. So much so that they are facilitating and taking care of everything. They're pioneer species. They're the first thing in every single ecosystem, which is why I agree with leading mycologist Paul Stamets when he says, the strength and health of any ecosystem is a direct measure of its diverse fungal population. Saprophytic fungi are more than just those decomposers on the compost pile. They come in two types, white rot and brown rot. White rot breaks down brown lignin and leaves behind white cellulose. And brown rot does the exact opposite. So yeah, they break down wood, but white rot also breaks down hydrocarbon bonds, which are found in fossil fuels. Paul Stamets, that same mycologist, you're gonna hear his name a lot. He did an experiment where he had a plot of land that had been contaminated by fossil fuel spill. He sectioned off 4 separate areas. One was a control pile, one he put enzymes in, one bacteria, and lastly he took oyster mushroom spores and put it on them. He waited 8 weeks and came back and found not only had these bonds been broken down, but that they had created the white cellulose, which had attracted insects that had left behind larvae, attracting birds. Birds had brought seeds, and it had created a whole new ecosystem. So yeah, there was these 3 stinky, rotty piles that no one wanted to go near, and then the mushroom pile, which had fully restored an area to its former growth. Basically, fungi are pretty awesome. Not only this, but fungi are also, there's a type of fungi we call hyperaccumulators, meaning they break down heavy metals. So this is pretty cool, and I could talk your ear about it, but let's let the chart speak for itself. This is a chart from Paul Stamets' book, Mycelium Running. I actually had to cut it off because it was too long. This is a group of, there are different mushrooms here that you can see that have their ability to break down different heavy metals. These heavy metals are often hazardous and we don't want around, even though they are natural, they're produced by Mother Earth. This fact that they can break down these things further reinforces in my mind the fact that the Earth never produces something it can't clean up. I want to bring your attention to one specific fungi. You can find it, the only one under F, and for the life of me, I cannot ever pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. We'll come back to it later on. It's often called the winter mushroom. Mycoremediation, those of you who work with or near the EPA probably know that there's something called brownfields. Brownfields are sites, this is a definition off of the EPA. Brownfields are basically just a site that's had a hazardous waste spill. And so basically, we don't want to live on it because sometimes the groundwater and soil can be contaminated to the point it can harm people. So bioremediation is using environmentally safe techniques to clean up these brownfields. Often microorganisms are used, but there's also phytoremediation, which uses green plants. The leading plants right now in bioremediation are willows and sunflowers. They take about 15 to 20 years to fully restore a brownfield. Makes you wonder about that piece of trash you threw out the window. However, when you compare it to white rot fungi, which only take 3 years maximum to restore a brownfield, there's just no comparison. Under mycoremediation, you have mycofiltration. Scientists are more and more discovering what we have credited soil, the holding together of soil, we've always credited it to plants. the fact that their roots are holding it together. But more and more we're discovering that fungi excrete a glue-like enzyme, which is actually the biggest part of holding together soil. They excrete an enzyme that holds the soil together. However, we have often credited plants with this, which is why we use riparian buffers. As you can see here, a riparian buffer is just the gradual planting of plants to hold a stream bank together. So we would start at the edge with like reeds and soil, small, close to the ground soil plants. And then you would get larger with something like a cottonwood or a sycamore. This holds the soil together. However, these mushrooms work 4 times better than a riparian buffer. Paul Stamets, that same guy, he found after an experiment that 3 mushroom species in 48 to 72 hours reduced the coliform level of any given water area 10,000 times. So any of you who don't do water quality testing like I do wouldn't necessarily know what coliform is. Coliform is what we refer to as the E. coli levels. So E. coli would be in manure runoff. So in rural areas like Loudoun County, Fauquier County, Prince William, you have a lot of big farms with streams, and that manure runoff causes a lot of problems because it strangles stream life. So having this, the ability to reduce that coliform level so that stream life can prosper, is really necessary. When I first got into mycology, I had a bunch of family members who were diagnosed with cancer. And the thing that got me so interested was this, turkey tail. It's one of the most common fungi that you can find. It's found on all 7 continents except for Antarctica, and it's been long known to be an immune booster. But Paul Stamets, that same guy, well, he did an experiment that was groundbreaking. While he was in the middle of this clinical trial using turkey tail with chemo drugs and cancer treatment, his mom got diagnosed with stage 4 metabolic cancer and was given 4 months to live. He started her on turkey tail and some cancer drugs, and in 1 year, she had no detectable cancer. She's still alive to this day. That was 2010. So the fact that we can save lives with mushrooms, that's pretty awesome too. Maitake mushrooms are often used in places in the East, especially in Asia. You will find that they're an immune booster, but unlike lots of other immune boosting mushrooms, they have long-term enhancement properties and can fight infections as they happen. They also have antioxidant and antimetastatic properties. Coolest of all is cordyceps. Cordyceps is often used as an insecticide. It uses chitin in insects' bodies to grow and has some pretty weird neurological properties too. However, it prolongs the life of white blood cells and protects kidney from chemo treatment. In fact, Coraline Demore in 2009 found amazing results when using cordyceps with cancer. Last but not least, Ganoderma reishi mushrooms actually protect cellular DNA by raising antioxidant capacities. People who know genetics and are interested in it like I am know that DNA is the first step for cancer. In fact, if you're more commonly now we call it mycophobia, but he believed that the root of this fear was British and therefore inconsequential. Basically, he went so far to say it's not human, it's merely British. It's so deep and intense a prejudice that it amounts to a national superstition. So I encourage you all to go out there to break down these stereotypes that fungi are killing us and instead tell people the truth. Tell them that mushrooms are saving them every single day, even without their knowledge. I hope that you all go home and that you all tell people what you've learned. You tell people that this is an incredible organism, because honestly, it is.
Thank you.